Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saturday night number 54 of the Speak Up Club, an initiative by Living Life. Today, it's about habits, an inspiration series that will talk about what are habits, what makes them so important and crucial to our lives, how can we or can we create habits, and the most important things, how can we break the habits that are kind of limiting our lives. With that, let's move into the session. So, first and foremost, let me begin with sharing you a story. I have a 6-year-old, 7-year-old now, and a year ago, he was reciting his letters, alphabets. And while he was doing that, he said A, B, C, E, F, G. I was about to stop him, and then he said A, B, C, E, F, G. I stopped him and corrected him. I said it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The next day in his school exam, when the teacher asked him to recite the alphabets, he began with a lot of conviction. A, B, C, E, F, G. After the class, I asked him, didn't I teach you yesterday that it was A, B, C, D, and then E, F, G? He said that I've been practicing for the last 2 months. A, B, C, E, F, G. It's often said, practice makes a man perfect. Have you ever wondered whether it's perfect or it's just a pattern? Perfect means there's no flaw in it, while A, B, C, E, F, G, there's a flaw in it, and he has perfected that flaw to perfection. So the question that I want you all to ask today is, what is happening in this story? What is happening in this story?
A habit was created.
A habit was created. Sri Krishna, go ahead.
Nothing, sir. Even I had the same point.
What's happening over here? Why did my son, after I corrected him, still not able to say the right thing?
It needs
because
to change a habit.
Okay, Sri, Vikas, go ahead.
Yeah, because of his repeated practice, a pattern has already been made in his mind. So even though you corrected him, he could not recollect anything other than the pattern, but has already been engraved in his mind.
Wonderful. Great thought, Vikas. And thanks for telling the idea that I'm going to propose here. Habits, the dictionary definition of habits is a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially the one that is hard to give up. Let me ask each one of you all a question. Do you know why you do what you do or how you do it? Do you have an answer? Why do you do something in a certain way or a certain pattern, or the way you do it?
We became more robotic.
Begin more robotic. Interesting perspective. Good one, sir.
We
Yes,
got
Shreya, go ahead.
habituated to the same way.
Akansha, go ahead.
We got habituated to the same way.
Habituated in the same way. So you are telling you are doing because there's a pattern in place. Hasanuddin sir is saying because it becomes robotic in nature. That's the reason. Interesting. Shreya, you wanted to say something?
Same, sir. It became a habit.
Became a habit. So the question that I want to ask you all is, for the things that you do on a daily basis as a routine, on whatever you're doing on a daily basis with regard to different things. Are you really in charge of what you are doing? Or is it just a pattern being played out even without you realizing it?
Mostly it is pattern.
Interesting. Chetan, go ahead.
Some are patterns, some are intentionally done.
Wonderful.
A pattern is developed, but I also try to improvise it. Next
Pattern is developed, but you look to improvise it. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Now let me ask each one of you all, in the last 1 week, if I were to ask you, what is that one thing you did, or one decision you made, or one behavior pattern you exhibited? What would that one thing be? Any example, anything that comes to your mind right now?
Okay, in the previous weeks, what I used to do is I used to note down the tasks that I have to do on the daily basis. Today or tomorrow or day after tomorrow, like. But from the last week onwards, I have started a new practice that, and above the task, I am keeping some tasks which are to inculcate as a habits. Maybe it's a good quotation that has to be read every day to make us, more positive, to be more, positive thinking or something like that. Some good quote that I am keeping on above the tasks to make me reminded those previous quotes. Because what happens is we are on the daily basis we are receiving so many positive quotes, but we just read it and forget. But no, what I am doing it now is I am just noting down on the daily task page to read it again and again, so that it gets engraved in my habits and in memory also.
Interesting. Yes, Chetan, go ahead. Any one decision, any one behavior, it could be good, bad, something impulsive, whatever happened. One thing that you can recollect that happened in the last week.
I'm trying to sleep early, sir.
Trying to sleep early. Okay, interesting. That's nice. So what day, what time were you sleeping earlier, Shreya? It's okay. Nobody's judging over here.
3 o'clock.
Huh?
2 o'clock or 3 o'clock.
Okay. And what has happened in the last week?
Last week, I'm trying to sleep before 12 or 1.
So is that 2:45 or much earlier?
Much earlier.
Okay. Sri Krishna, okay, let me ask you the other way around. When did you wake up in the last week?
Mostly around 7 or 8, like that.
Okay. And the week before that?
More or less after lockdown, everything, my waking up time is between 7 to 8 daily.
So it's a 1 year that it has happened. Do you put an alarm to wake up? You're on mute.
So I generally don't prefer alarms.
Okay. Another question. While you went out this week, how many of you all put a mask and went out?
I always.
We all.
Okay. And did you have to consciously think that I have to take a mask and moved out, or something that came naturally to you?
We did it naturally.
Routine.
But 1 year ago, there was nothing called as a mask in our life at all.
Now it came into our habit.
Yes.
So as an example, now I'll ask you something which is interesting. While I'm asking these questions to you right now, for the ones who have answered and the ones who have not answered, can you think whether you have started speaking when I ask, or whether you don't speak as a choice that you're making whenever I'm asking? When I'm asking a question, Some of y'all are naturally coming in, and some of y'all are naturally not coming in ahead. Do you see a pattern there? Right now, someone has a question in your mind.
I see a big pattern.
Someone is already asking that question, and someone is still holding back from asking that question. Do you see a pattern there? The reason why I ask this is because when you look at habits, not limited to what we just think as habits from the regular definition that we have, the time we wake up or the way we go to sleep or the regular habits that we're talking of, different dimensions in our life. When you talk of dimensions, you talk of your career, you talk of business, you talk of your health practices, you talk of your personal development, the way you approach your own development, the way you look at relationships. If you properly observe, the underlying pattern of how you are living in each of these dimensions is already set. You are not consciously making an attempt to do something. It's just a pattern which is coming to the fore while you're doing something. Having said that, this is why it is said, more than anything else, more than any idea, any knowledge that you have, it is the habits that you have that is what defines our lives. Beautifully said by Jim Rohn, success is a few good habits repeated every day. Failure is a few bad decisions repeated every day. The challenge is now, when I'm talking of this conscious mind, there's a neuroscientist, the neuroscience, which is the science of the mind and the way our mind and thoughts operate. It says that we are in control of our conscious mind only for 5% of the time. Only 5% of the time we are in conscious control, while the rest of the 95% of the time, it is these patterns and the subconscious and unconscious mind which is at play. So technically, even while I'm speaking right now, there's a pattern which is there that I operate in, which is in play. Even while I'm looking at you right now, I'm just looking at you, and there's something which I'm speaking, which is out of a pattern which has formed within me. The way I'm speaking, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm trying to understand, how are you receiving this? It's not me who's talking to you right now. It's a pattern of who Rahul Jain is that is speaking to you right now. That's the power of patterns. And when I'm saying patterns, I'm going to synonymously use it to the word habits. So as I say, welcome to the world of patterns, welcome to the world of habits. The way we operate, like I said, only 5%, neuroscience says that only 5% of our conscious mind and thinking capacity is what we are in control of, while the remaining 95%, which actually operates everything that we do and defines what we are and how we become, is not in our control. Now the point is, how do we build, or how have we become what we have become over this time in the way we do things? This 5% conscious mind which is there becomes a window. So if you have a big house, this 5% is the door through which there's an entry and an exit, and the way the operation happens of your entire house, of the way you're dealing with things, of the way you're operating, of the way you're living your lives is defined by this. But the inflow is only that 5%. So if you have seen a dartboard, that center red, only that much is there which you are under control of. Now, giving you an example, there's something called as an adaptive unconscious. All of you all drive a two-wheeler. While you're driving a two-wheeler, as an example, do we have if you have learned, if you already learned and you're driving a two-wheeler, at the turn, do you have a calculation in your mind that I should bend this much? Should I increase the pace this much? Should I slow down now? Should I apply the brake? Have you observed after you have come 5 kilometers from somewhere, you don't remember what was there in between in this journey? You're just blanked out, and while you're reaching somewhere, you even don't know what happened and how you have reached here. Does it happen to you?
Yes, always.
The reason I am saying that is, despite you not being aware, there's something called as adaptive unconscious, which is operating you even without your conscious mind. It is taking the inputs, the cues which are required from the eyes, ears, and everything. The cues are going in, and it is like an autopilot which is running. That is what we're talking of, how an human operates. The adaptive unconscious works in a pattern in which even without your awareness, even without your conscious awareness, things are happening. That is how things operate with our mind. There's also a study, a neuroscientist by the name Paul Whelan, who even goes on to say that most of what we do every day is unconscious. Most of what we are doing, not even 5%. That's how you are operating right now. Even while I'm speaking for the last 12 minutes now or 17 minutes now, there's a thought process which is going on within you. There's a pattern which is running within you of what you are listening habit. There's a pattern which is running within you. After 5 minutes, there was a shut off. You don't remember what I said at 9:16. But your unconscious mind has taken it in. Just give me a second. Your unconscious mind has soaked in what I've said, but your conscious mind doesn't even know that something like this has happened. That's the power of the unconscious mind, or the power of patterns that we create. So next time when someone says you got some good marks, or you did some good job, you did something well, someone compliments you, tell them actually you don't deserve it. Because actually you are not doing it. Stop taking credit for something which is being done by someone else, which is your subconscious mind. Our conscious mind, the way we think and what we are doing, is more like a terrible CEO for whom all the subordinates are doing some exceptional work, doing it perfectly and doing everything fine. At the end, the CEO has to just sign the papers. And the CEO is taking credit for all the thing which has been done. That is what you're doing. Because what you think is not what you're doing. It is not what you think. It is deep within who you are. The subconscious mind, which is the true worthy of credit of what you have accomplished. Now, yes, you might debate. It is getting it through me only, no? So I deserve it. So the CEO will tell, I'm getting the salary. I've hired you, right? I have hired you, so I deserve the credit for all the work which is done. So let me begin with the simple idea about the first secret of a habit. How many times have you started learning something new? What was the last thing that you did, something new, some music instrument, new subject, new chapter, whatever?
It was in the last year starting, when the COVID pandemic started. So I started with an SEO course.
Interesting.
So it was a free course by this channel named Intellectual Indies, and in that course, actually, I learned how to write blogs.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
my question, anyone else would like to share if they've done something new? Chetan? Anything new? Anything?
We've been attending the sessions every week at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Saturday nights at 9 o'clock is a new thing. Now the question for you, even if it's even if you want to consider that, or Sri Krishna's point, whenever you do something new, have you observed the fatigue that you get at the start of
Yes.
learning something? Now, everyone
Yes.
might have learned driving a two-wheeler or a car. While you were learning, the first time when you started learning, or the process through which you were learning, if you were doing that for 1 hour, something new, have you observed the kind of fatigue we had? You're tired
Yeah.
with just half
Yes,
an hour of
yes,
learning something new.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
We
more
do
of
feel.
mental tiredness rather than the bodily physical tiredness, because
Interesting.
the
Now,
new
why does
things,
the yes, go ahead, Vikas.
because the mind is trying to accommodate the new pattern, and that is why actually the tiredness
Interesting.
yeah.
There's something called as the way our mind operates is there's something called as neurons, which is the language of the body, which interacts between whatever. Now I'm talking like this is moving. This is a signal from a neuron to my mind to move like this. There's an interaction. There's a constant language in the body and the mind. Now, whenever you do something new, there's something called as mental fatigue. Mental fatigue results or is coming from the fact that there's something new which is happening. Now, the question is, for the things that you're doing daily, for the things which you're doing daily, waking up or attending school, not the attending the physical exertion from the attending school or new subject or the job that you're doing, for the things where there's a pattern already in place, where there's a habit in play, for something which is running in automation, do you feel the mental fatigue?
No.
You won't feel the mental fatigue as much in compared to what you do when something is new. Let's take forward the same example, driving the two-wheeler or cycle. Today, when you drive that bicycle or car for half an hour, do you feel tired mentally?
Once we learn it, we do not feel tired.
You have learned it. It has come as a pattern for you. And so you do not have mental fatigue. There are many times we, at the end of the day, having done nothing which is habitual, still without much of a physical exertion, we feel fatigue at the end of the day, because when you don't have a pattern, when you don't have a habit which is operating, at every minute, every second, there's a question which is going to your mind. Decide something, do something. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do? Is this correct? Is this wrong? And every time the mind answers this, without much being done through the day, there's still exhaustion, mental fatigue by the end of the day. Now, the question that I wanted to ask you, I was always curious about this fact that I also have 24 hours in a day. Chetan also has 24 hours a day. Obama also has 24 hours. Modi also has 24 hours. Why is that I'm not able to accomplish as much as someone who's successful, Elon Musk or any other company CEO is able to do so much? Why is that I'm not able to accomplish as much as he's doing? And it's not about delegation. Let me clear that. If I were to ask each one of you all, give me one attribute that makes people successful. If you can chat. If you can just unmute and say speak. Just one attribute you feel is the most important one for people to succeed. Speak.
The person must be down to earth.
Down to earth, okay. Hard work.
Enthusiasm and passion.
Enthusiasm and passion. Wonderful.
Dedication. Loving what we are doing.
Bhavagya, come again.
Loving what we are doing.
Loving what you're doing. Wonderful.
Visionary. Visionary.
Visionary.
Curious to know about new things.
Now, when I ask you the same question, look at all these attributes which you said to me. While if you look at these attributes or principles that you shared with me, if you look at them in isolation, you'll find that as an activity or that as a thought process. But still, if it was a thought process or it was an activity, it will give mental fatigue, right? Someone will be tired. It isn't adding to tiredness, it isn't adding to mental fatigue, because whatever you said became a pattern. There was no conscious decision every day in and out towards that principle that you shared. Smart work, nobody's trying to be smart on that one day. Hard work, nobody's trying to be hardworking on that one day. Nobody's trying to love his work on that one day. With whatever you said, look at how that is translating to a pattern within an individual. And that is the reason they're able to accomplish what they are. And probably me or someone is not able to accomplish because we look at that as a skill or as a one-time event. We are not looking at that as a pattern which is being built. Loving your work as an example. If someone says, loving your work, today I'm doing something. I'm loving my work. Tomorrow I'm not doing something that I love. The third day you have a question, how should I love the work that I'm doing? Fourth day you'll have a question, is it worth to do this thing? Fifth day you'll think, loving is the way to look forward. When there are questions which are operating in your mind for the principle as a one-time act, it isn't becoming a pattern. For the ones who are following it or becoming successful, it is a pattern which is resulting in they not having the mental fatigue from that principle. I hope everyone is with me on this. So the idea is there's something which is called as automation, which we talked about. Hasanuddin sir, you said robotic in nature. I won't call it robotic in nature because there's a thought process which has gone behind a pattern. So as a robot, it will be a code, a piece of code of what it is doing and what it is serving as a purpose. While with a human, there will be a lot of elements which will drive or become important in the formation of a pattern. So the point is, for you to become successful, remember one thing, it's not your thinking which is important. Because thinking you'll have to do every day. But one thing which is cemented as an idea and becomes a pattern, you are not thinking about that afterwards. So today, if you want to wake up, you're not thinking about how to wake up. Today, if you want to drive a two-wheeler, drive a car, you're not thinking how to drive a car. I hope you're getting all of you are getting what I'm saying. It has to be converted into a pattern for you to experience that spirit and become free despite that. And how will you do it? The same idea as the two-wheeler, the way you run. Initially, you have that 5% window, the door which is there, through which you consciously set a pattern into your subconscious mind by doing, by falling and then getting up again, by balancing. How are you balancing? How much speed to give? How much brake to give? How much pressure to give? All those things are something which are consciously building as a pattern while you're doing it. Today, if you have done it for the last 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, you are not consciously thinking of it. That is operating through your subconscious mind. That is where you get free. That is where you free or relax and give opportunity to this 5% conscious mind to be free. If I have to think about that braking or brakes or driving or balance every time I'm driving, where will this 5% go? It will be lost in these because there's no pattern still. Once a pattern is established, this is free. It's like more like a RAM. Once a pattern is done, the program is running, it doesn't need the RAM in literal terms. Having said that, let's move to the next level of what and types of habits that we have. Broadly speaking, the habits are being classified into 3 categories, which is productivity habits, physical habits, and mental habits. The productivity habits could be like the way you're scheduling your work. So Hasumi sir told about calendar, the way he's using it, or someone else is using, and the clutter in front of you, in your office, in your space, in your study space, the how you're organizing or the way you're doing your work comes under productivity habits. The next is the physical habits, which is related to your regular exercise or what you're eating or your regular break that you need to have while you're doing something. And finally, and the most important thing are the mental habits. The habits which are related to the way you think, being mindful about your surroundings, the way you are operating and the way you have gratitude, the way you are able to give positive thinking for every instance which is coming. So today when people ask me, I'm a very positive person, I have to consciously think, what am I doing that I am a positive person? Because it's a pattern which is sent in and I'm not consciously having to think, इसमें positive क्या है, कैसे है, मैं क्या बोल सकता हूँ, कैसे कर सकता हूँ. So that is what we are talking of when we are saying these 3 categories of habits. Now, the important thing is there are some people who are exceptional in one category of habits. In one of the past programs that we have done, I am balanced. You could have some wonderful productivity habits, excellent work ethic, but bad physical habits. Will it help you in building a great life? You could be on fire, you could be awarded in your corporate job, in your business, you could be earning hundreds of millions. But with your bad health, does it help? Or the same challenge with regard to how you are experiencing, how you're feeling about what you're seeing or what you're doing on a daily basis. Are you having a positive approach towards things? You could have a lot of money. You could try as a robotic experience or as a process or as a routine. You could do something like, which is having a good pattern. But if you don't perceive or don't feel good about that same thing, it may not yield the same results. Remember, we talked about one of the sessions where we did about mindful or mindful. That is where we are talking of how, despite everything being normal on the face of it, you being accomplished, you learning, you having everything that the world would desire, but still there's something like an emptiness which is there within. That's also a pattern, the way you see things. That's also a pattern through which your experience of life changes. So that's what we are talking about, the 3 categories. Let me move on to the most important segment of today's session, which is about, can we really create or break these habits? Or what can enable us to build or break these patterns that are already in play? That's what we are talking about today, because that is something which is going to help you in actionable items, actionable points, which will lead you to bring about that change. If for whatever 53 sessions that you have attended, whatever sessions you have attended, if you have got it as a knowledge, as a thought process, and not converted into a habit, it will be a beautiful idea. It will be a beautiful thought that I know this. But if it doesn't translate into how you live, there's no point. So all the knowledge that you have, let's see what we can do about, if you have knowledge of something being a good pattern or good habit and still are not able to inculcate it. Let's see what we can do about that today. So the first and foremost thing that we need to understand when we are getting into the process of building or breaking habits is, where do you begin? Where do you begin when you want to build or break habits? What is a good point to start? Chetan, Shriya, hi Rashmi.
Hello.
Hi Shweta, Saraf, hi Srini. Welcome to the session. Yeah, where do we begin?
Thank you, Rahul.
Where do we begin when we want, where should we start? Let's understand that first.
We need to introspect ourselves.
Interesting. about your pattern. What is it that is your autopilot? I often call this as an autopilot mode of an individual. Not much of a thinking. Not that it was not thought out. I'm saying it is operating not without much of a thinking right now. It's a pattern in which we are running and the way we are doing things. So the first and foremost thing that we can do to understand, to introspect, as you said, Rabia, is to have something called as an habit audit. Consciously look at what you are doing right now and try to make a log of why you're doing it. Is it that everyone is doing, so I'm doing it? Or is it that just that I've got into this habit of doing and so I'm doing it? Shreya, 3 a.m. Is it just a pattern which is running? Once you have all the set of activities that you talked of in the categories, which were different categories that you talked, the productivity habits or the physical habits or the mental habits, understand and classify your simple day. Whatever you're doing as a daily routine today, make a note of those things on each of these categories of habits that we have. And then ask yourself, why are you doing it? Waking up at 9 a.m. Why? Going to school? Why? Driving at 60 kilometers per hour? Why? Get a list of all the things that you're doing and ask, why are you doing it? That's the first step to building awareness of what your life looks like at this point in time. And then there's a simple definition of what is a good habit and a bad habit. What will you call as a good habit, Rashmi? Sri Krishna, anyone?
Yes, good habit means it's progress your life, and your mindfulness, you are always mindfulness in small things.
Mm-hmm.
So automatically you are cultivating good habits. For example, if I'm drinking juice or something, so I should not watch TV, or I should not call friend, or I should not talk to somebody. I should enjoy my drinking juice. So if you are mindfulness in that particular small things, you will cultivate your good habits.
Interesting. That's one of the good habit. Anyone else would like to define what is a good habit or what is a bad habit? Shreya, go ahead.
Good habit means going in a proper manner and settled routine. Bad habits like eating lunch at 3 a.m. is a bad habit.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, so this is Srini here, Rahul.
Yeah, yes, Srini,
Am
go
I
ahead.
audible?
Yeah.
So what I feel is a good habit is which increases your productivity, which increases your health and well-being. So I think those are good habits, I would say. And bad habit, I would consider it which actually deteriorates your relationships or your health or your productivity. So that's how I classify.
Wonderful. Thanks, Srini, for that perspective. I think that clearly pinpoints to the structure that we are talking of about the three categories of habits that we have. Let me put it in another way. With Shreya, what you said, or Rashmi, what you said. A simple idea of what is a good habit or a bad habit, the definition I have is, or from what I've read, it to be, is the fact that anything that enables you to become what you aspire to be, or adds to your identity of how you want to be, is a good habit. Everything else is a bad habit.
But this is the thought. Habit is a repeated action is become your habit.
That's right. So that's what the point we are talking about is any repeated habit or any repeated act which is leading you to where you want to be is good. If it is distracting you or taking away from where you want to be, It's bad. Now here, qualitatively, the judgment, why I said, and the reason why I'm asking this is because good and bad. Sleeping at 3 a.m. could be perceived as a bad habit. But if I have a job, which is a call center job, I sleep at 3 o'clock. Does it make it a bad habit? I'm not saying there are no universal good or bad habits. All I'm saying is that every habit you have to contextualize to where you are and what you are doing and what is it that you're looking up to. That is when any habit will be an enabler or a disabler for your life. Having said that, then when you have an idea of whatever you're doing and you have a clear picture of where you want to be or the identity that you want to create, with a list of things that you have, assign each activity as an enabler or a disabler. With this audit, you get to know what are you doing well, and you can pat yourself for that because it's already a pattern which is helping you to be where you want to be. And the other activities, which are the disabler things, you'll need to assess what you can do such that you can either minimize the effect that it is having or try to convert that in a way in which it can lead or become the enabler to your life. I hope I'm clear with this, everyone. Yes.
I have a question here, Rahul.
Yes, Shweta, go ahead.
It's okay what you said, I agree. But don't you think we need to add that what are the harmful contents? It's okay, it's good that we are enabling ourselves to what we aspire to. But if it is harmful to us and we are not able to understand, or it is harmful to others to reach there, don't you think we need to categorize that too? For good habit and bad habit?
Okay, when it comes to, I'm talking of how we are judging a pattern for ourselves at this point in time. I'm not going a step ahead whether where you want to be or the identity that you want to create is good or bad. I'm not denying the fact that the idea which you said, whether unintentionally you might be thinking a certain pattern is good. As an example, I'll just tell you the point, very well noted point, Shweta. As an example, when it's a stress, as an example, I've seen a lot of people having this pattern. They feel that smoking a cigarette is relieving my stress, supposedly. That's a thought process, unintentional thought process that they feel that they have, while it could be harmful in a way. So here, okay, point well taken, Shweta, with regard to you having a subjective or an objective assessment, whether it is leading to where you want to be or it is an disabler. Thank you, Shweta, for adding that point. So that is one good place where we can start, where we look at an habit audit of what we are. The next thing that we want to do is, habits are not designed or defined for everyone in the same way. Each one of us have a different pattern in which we are wired and the way we operate. There's broadly a study which was done which classified each one of us into one of these 4 categories of the way we engage with habits, or we are able to create or break our habits. The 4 categories which were mentioned were upholders, wherein the expectations from the outside world and the expectations from within, both are driving you to create something and you're able to do it well. The next category of people is the questioners. They're the people who have their own thought process with regard to the way they want a pattern to be built, and only they can convince themselves. They'll be the ones who will say, 1st January को ऐसा क्या हो रहा है भाई? मेरे को करना है तो मैं वैसे भी कर लूंगा, और नहीं करना है तो कुछ भी कर लो, नहीं करूंगा, आपके बोलने से तो बिल्कुल नहीं करूंगा. And the third category, which is the obligers. They are the category which meet outer expectations. And for them, meeting or standing up to the outer world's expectation of them is much more important than the internal drive. So when you see people going to a gym, when you see people going to a gym with a group of people, or waking up in the morning at 5 a.m. for a walk with a group, you will see, because everyone expects them to be there in that, They'll expect them also to come. They'll have an accountability partner. They'll be able to change or build their habits or break their habits according to the outer world expectations. And the last one is the one which we call rebels. They're the ones who resist both the inner and the outer expectations. They have the thought process until unless they are convinced for themselves about the authenticity of the need for that change, they cannot be done. It is largely said, a lot of people are either in the category of questioners or the obligers. Either they are driven by the internal world only or the external world only. And so the patterns which are there, you need to understand what kind of a pattern do you have? What kind of a person are you? Accordingly, the strategies to building habits change. If you are an obliger and you think your surrounding, if you're a questioner and if you feel that you're going for a walk with someone that will change your habit, it's not going to happen. If you're a rebel, do anything, it won't happen. So having said that, that is how the patterns, first step is what is your pattern, and the second thing is what is your type of personality which will enable you to or disable you to bridge, to create or break habits. Now, yes, Pragya, go ahead.
Rahul, just a little point which I would want to add to Shweta's question because you started, then I did not answer it.
Yeah.
So when Shweta asked about the factor of considering people when you're making habits, so I would just like Shweta to take a step back and understand this perspective. Whenever we are creating habits, the habits are created with our own perspectives. The example which Rahul gave, that probably a person feels or has a habit that whenever that person is stressed, smoking is a stress buster for that person. So when this kind of a scenario comes into picture, the habit has been found with a perspective or a mindset of comforting himself and not keeping into picture the surroundings, the people concerned, or anything which would affect, not even to the extent where the person himself understands that this is going to be harmful for me. So that is a very prominent feature of any habit, that when we get into picture, it is with a perspective of the situation then and there, and not a long term or a short term effect or a repercussion that it might carry. Because if that was existing, everybody in the world would have only habits which will have a positive impact and not any which will have a negative impact on them. So this is a key factor of habits, that they depend highly on the perspective that you have towards that situation and the inner desire to solve it in any manner that you can. And that is why the negative habits are prominently formed. A thief doesn't become a thief or get into a habit of doing robberies because he wants to, but he has the intent to solve his hunger or something like that. And once he finds this thing to be the easy way out, that is his perspective, an easy way out, the habit of doing robbery starts. So that's how these negative habits, because of the perspectives, people do not go to in depth of its future repercussions. That might give you a little bit overview on how this, the question probably which you had in mind.
Okay, so let me jump in quickly into 9 things that I wanted to share, 9 principles on how you can either create or break habits. The first and foremost thing is, we often look at it as a habit as an end result. I want this as a result, and that is where you begin your habits. But the underlying principle that is flawed in habit, or the way it is created or it is broken, is that we are not in charge. We are not able to change what is right now. And so the difference between looking at habit as a task and habit as an inspiration works wonders over here. So when you start looking at the end result of what you want to become, as a result, and not as an activity or an end goal, that is what will make a difference in the way you approach in building or breaking habits. Look at what is it that you want to become, and that will act as a source of inspiration to deepening the possibility of habit being created or not being created. The second is, there's this wonderful book which is titled Atomic Habits. In that, there's this beautiful perspective given that for the ones who are in finance, you'll understand this better. There's something called as compounding. There's a power of compounding, which is one little instance, one little act, when done repeatedly. And we are not talking of transformational changes. We are talking of one little act being done on a regular basis with the repetition, with the pattern. It need not be big. Let me warn you, it need not be big. A small activity when done day in and day out with its own repeated nature can deliver results which are unimaginable. A simple example, statistically speaking, when you grow 1%, every day, at the end of the year, you are 37 times better than where you are right now. That's the power of compounding. We often underestimate the power of one small act which can lead to what we want to be. We often think that if I want to lose my weight by so many kgs, 20 is too big a number. How will I get 20? But the ones that I've interacted with, the ones who have got or delivered this result, they said that they didn't look at 20. They looked at 100 grams one day. And that's where the journey began. And this 100 grams repeatedly, consistently on a day-to-day basis helped in delivering what they aspired for. One of the biggest limitation as humans we feel or we experience in any formation of habit is the gigantic nature of the task in itself. Once you break it down into smaller levels, you'll realize it is nothing but one step at a time, one small act at a time. That is what the power of small act but compounding effect playing its role, and that's what it does. The next thing, now. When you're talking of habits, talk of now. This one moment that you have in the way you can control this and what you can do now is what defines your ability to create or break a habit. We often perceive things which are to be done for tomorrow or later or how big the task is. The now moment focus will help you in recalibrating to what is under your control right now. The very reason we're talking of habits and the way we want to change them or create them is that we are not in control. We are not in control. And if you want control, like I said at the start of the session, 5% of your conscious mind, which is there, which you are under control of, use that and act now. When there's a conscious attempt to be in this moment, be mindful, there's much bigger power that you have when compared to the habit and the pattern which is running in the background. This combined with the previous point, now mindful, act one day at a time. That's what the transformation will come from. That's the reason it said, be very, very careful of how you spend your days. Because whatever you aspire for, whatever goal that you have, be it financial, business, career, relationship, anything that you aspire for, it doesn't come all at once in a fortnight. It comes from that one moment that you're acting now. What you do now, and that now when it changes to tomorrow, again that now when it changes another day, again that now, that is where you're creating or breaking a pattern. That is the control that we need to have, and be mindful of what we are doing now. That's it. And break or limit the pattern which is running at the background. Next, when you talk of any habit you want to create or you want to break, for everything, The entire act in itself is not something that you want to control. It is that one moment. It is often termed as decisive moment where the roads change. What follow throughs after that decisive moment is what you have done in that moment is what creates the future ripple. So at a by road, when you're traveling somewhere, and that you need not be thinking what will happen, what should I do, how should I do, what am I going to do, and all those things all through this journey. But at that moment where you have that decisive moment where it is going this way or that way, the difference between an event happening and your response coming, there's somewhere in between that conscious moment where you can choose what you are going to do. That decisive moment is what you have to be in control of, not the entire act in itself. When you wake up, if you want to wake up in the morning, that one moment when you're snoozing, if you're able to control that, if you're able to change that gradually, one day at a time, you will see after snoozing, when you get up and you wash your face and the day moves forward, it's not that tough. It's not that tough. Or you want to break your patterns about the way you're focusing on your health or your eating habits. That one moment when you're resisting from eating something which is bad for your health, that one moment, replace that one moment with something else. And that is what will help you in changing that pattern. It's not the entire act. I'm not talking of how do I wake up in the morning and do 100 things. I'm talking of how do I wake up at that moment and just be in charge for that 2 minutes. How many of y'all have faced situations like that where you have built a habit or broken a habit with that decisive moment? Anyone would like to share anything?
Yes.
Yes, Rashmi.
Yeah, your mind clock is more important, means if you remind yourself, I have to wake up like if you had bad habit to wake up late, so you remind yourself tomorrow I will wake up half an hour early. So don't put alarm clock, just tell your mind I will wake up half an hour early, and you will wake up, because your willpower will think and act. It's become your habit. So if you decide, then you will start that small thing, and if you do that small thing again, mindfulness is more important. So
interesting.
And you will get instant result. Immediately you will get result. You feel better, your body language will change, your mindset will change.
Rashmi, I would agree on that point where you're saying about reiterating what you want as a new behavior, but that is for the questioners who trust what they do and how they do, not driven by external force. What if someone is a obliger? That brings me, Rashmi Sahai Chakraborty, would you like to add something? If you've got some idea over there when you said it's in the moment. Rashmi Sahai?
Yes, so actually, I'm just out of COVID. So there were times where I was not in a situation to, get up and start my day. And I used to feel कि शायद अब नहीं हो पाएगा. I am an interior designer by profession. So my job profile includes going out. So I thought that this might not be possible again, and I might not be able to restart my life. So on that very moment, I felt कि no, यही moment है, and if in this moment I don't decide that I have to get up, so I won't be able to.
Interesting. Thank you, Rashmi, for sharing that, and hope you're doing good now.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
Look at this, more than the going out part, this thinking habit which Rashmi is sharing, that moment when that thought is striking you, how are you at that moment putting a counter thought? So it's not the entire day she has to keep thinking that I will go out, I'll go out, I'll go out. But when the thought strikes in your mind, are you able to bring in a pattern that I won't let this idea settle in? That is where you're in control of. And when I said to Rashmi Mani regarding the change, if it's an obliger, this is where one of the most beautiful techniques which works for a lot of people is about the environment that you are in. Environment is something like an invisible hand that shapes us. How many of you all have experienced where you have someone by your side, or you are in a culture, or you're in a place where what you want to do or what you want to be is a normal thing? I've experienced this while I was a young kid in my school. While I was in my home, where I was not in the hostel, then in that situation, there was a situation where I used to not wake up, or I used to find it very hard to wake up. While I was in my school, where I was going to boarding school, there was a situation where initially I found it hard, but when I saw everyone waking up so comfortably and easily without that much of a pain that I had, that changed the thought process that I had, and that changed the pattern in which I was behaving. Because in my house, I was the only one who had to wake up at 5 a.m. But when I was in a hostel boarding place, there were over 200 kids who were waking up at 5 a.m. And it felt but natural for me to wake up at 5. Look at if you are an obliger and the way it works for you, look at finding a partner who can build in the accountability for you and you becoming the accountability partner for them. You do not want, as a human, we do not want a situation where we are looked down upon a commitment that we have given. A perfect example is Saturday nights. I do not want a situation where I'm facing anyone and someone is asking me, "Kya hua is baar Saturday night hua nahi kya?" And for that very reason, look at the transformation that has happened. We are at 54th Saturday night now without a break, except for one which was not a choice. The reason this thing happened, a transformation that happened within me, for this habit which came in. Lethargy and waiting कि हाँ करेंगे तो करेंगे, जब होगा तब करेंगे, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, कौन पूछ रहा है, कौन मांगने वाला है, जब हम बोलते हैं तभी होता है प्रोग्राम. The approach changed to Saturday nights at 9 p.m. and every week had a Saturday night. And that is what we're talking of. This change in having someone who can enable you, if you are driven by that, as a partner who can help you in that. The next thing is having a tracker. We often undermine the power of having something which is visible and you're able to track your progress. There's something called as a habit log. For everything that you want to do as a habit, put a 1 strike on that when you have done an action which is enabling that habit formation. Or the same way, go the other way around. If you want to disable a certain habit which is there right now, have a disabler, cut that 1 line. And the more you see drawing those lines one after another, after every pattern, after every line that you're drawing, it gives a signal to your mind that you are making progress. Qualitatively, it might just seem an idea that, okay, I'm doing progress. Maybe I'm doing progress. I'm not sure what is happening, how it is happening. But when you have something as a tracker, it could be a log, it could be something which is written over there, or like Rashmi Sai is saying, brain mapping. The way it works, and more than brain mapping, I would always advise to have something physical, which is external, which is acting as a resource for you to reflect back. Brain mapping becomes very easy for us to use an excuse that who's seeing anyways. But when you have the same idea on paper in front of you, when you do not have that tick, and you do not have that today I've not done this action, or today I've done something which is wrong or against the habit that I want to form. When you do that cross, it hits you back that why did I not do what I intended to? That is how it reflects back on what and how you can create that pattern. And finally, coming up to this idea where we're talking of the why. I've seen so many people not do many things that they aspired for or they want to create as a habit because they do not have a clarity on why they want to do it. When we talk of a habit audit, look at whatever you're doing. If something is a disabler, what is it that you want to change this for? That is the question that you need to ask, because that is something that will bring a commitment from your end to change. That is where the change will come. Without that why, you will always end up with an excuse. And only and if you have that why clear, every time that why will bounce back or help you bounce back in the things that you do. To come towards a close, there's a simple science behind the formation of the neural patterns which we are talking of. It's called as a 21/90 principle. They say do something for 21 days and it will be converted into a habit. Extend that process to 90 days and it will be converted into a lifestyle. The habit can be reversed with a gap in between, but once it becomes a lifestyle for you, once it becomes a pattern which is cemented for you, that is where the change happens. The same very reason you will see a lot of people when they're doing programs for change, programs to develop, they start working on this 21-day plan, share a video every day for 1 minute. If you're writing a blog, write a blog daily for 21 days. Because they know by the time the 22nd day comes, if you don't do it, you will have a missing puzzle in your mind. What is missing? What am I not doing today? And that's the power behind, it's often said the science, and there's a lot of history behind this number 21. Do something, whatever you want to change or break, do it for 21 days, and that will help you in building or breaking that habit. Pragya, would like to add something?
Just a small story which I came across, Rahul.
Yep.
As the only addition I had in the last session was also a story. Let me add a little bit over here with the story. So this beautiful story is about an old wise man. I read this some time back. A man came to this old wise man and brought his son and asked him that you are so wise. Can you help me change my son? This old man did nothing. He said, okay, let your son walk through with me. As he was walking by the path, there was a very small plant kind of a thing which was there. And there was a flower on it. This old wise man asked the kid to pluck that flower. He could easily do it. He just held it with 2 fingers and plucked it off. And they started moving ahead. Moving forward, there came a shrub. The old man asked to do the same thing. Pluck off this shrub. The kid held it with one hand and plucked it off. Moving forward, there came a little bigger plant. This time, the kid had to use both his hands, put in a lot of effort, but finally he could do it. Moving forward came a bigger tree, a deep-rooted tree. How much ever this kid tried to pluck it off, he had to put extreme efforts, put in all his energies to do it. Once that was done, the old man turned to the parent who was there and said, do you see why he can't change? And this simple story explained that the more deep rooted your habits get, the later you decide to change them. The stronger they become, the roots go deeper, they become a part of your life. So intimate part that you don't want to let them go. You don't have the energies left at times to pluck them off. So if you have few habits which you would want to develop, and especially few habits which you would want to change, because I'm sure most of us have lots of habits which we want to change. If you have them, do it till the time they are a shrub maximum, because the later it gets, the more part of your life they will take and the tougher they will become for you to change. Choose your right path to the right habits now as soon as possible. Over to Rahul.
Yep. Thank you, Pragya, for sharing that. With that, I would leave it open for any questions that anyone has, or we can discuss if you would like to understand anything better or listen to your perspective that you have to share. Anyone? I don't want to call names. Subhadra, ma'am, go ahead.
I agree, we don't like to change anything. And as you age, you don't want to change. But I still feel that if you put your mind to it, you can always change. I mean, it's a small thing and it is really silly only. But I would like to share with all of you. We always, amongst our siblings, we are 4 of us. We always call each other by our names. But then, in the past 4 years, my elder brother and myself, we have realized that maybe there is a distance between our younger brother and us because we didn't get into the habit of calling them as a brother. Like in Telugu, we say Tammudu, Annaya, Akka, like that. We never used to call. So maybe because of that, there is a distance between our younger brother and ourselves. So from that day onwards, and remember, we are both above 60 years. And at the age of late 50s, we decided to call each other as Annaya and Chellamma. And we could change. Even today, I call him Annaya and he calls me Cheppu Chellamma. He says that. So if you put your mind to anything, I feel that we can always try to change ourselves. So if anything, be disciplined in getting up early in the morning or going for a walk. Like everyone persuades me to go for a walk. And I always give the excuse, some excuse other for not walking. I'm a couch potato by nature. And I give all kinds of this. And I know that I don't get the discipline only because I'm not putting my mind to it. Once I start putting my mind to it, I'm sure I'll be able to do it. I was a member of an organization where I was working for about 16 hours a day. And it was not, like a working, I was not earning anything. It was a non-profit organization. I was working very hard for that. When I could do that, and I'm giving excuses to just get up and go for walking, that means I don't have discipline and I'm not putting my mind to it. So for all youngsters, I would like to suggest, put your mind, even if it is a bad habit, you can always get rid of it. That's what I would like to say. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you, Subhadra ma'am, for that perspective. And coming from someone of your age and you being able to change, you're demonstrating that the world of possibilities lies if we can think about it. Pragya, you want to share something? You were raising your hand.
Yes, Rahul. As Subhadra ma'am was speaking, there is a point which came to my mind with that. I think I am one person who's been extremely bad with habits, and that was probably a reason that I did not speak anything in today's session because it was absolutely opposite to a person like me. But one thing which I would say is that the biggest barrier which at least I face in building any kind of habit is the excuse, the option which I always provide to anything that comes into picture. So I will start going for walks, and after 5th day, 6th day, 10th day, even 21st day, I'll tell it's okay, it's just one day, I can let it go. And then another day will follow that one day, and I don't know how many days, months go off after that particular thing. So one thing which most of us do why we cannot build habits is that we justify ourselves to ourselves. that if I'm thinking one day is okay, it is justified. If I'm thinking that today I can have that cheat meal, it is justified. And that forms the bigger picture of bringing us out of that habit. And as I always say, that our brain is a very beautiful master, I would say. It knows exactly what to say, when to convince us to follow it. So the first thing that we need to do is, if we want to follow any habit, at least somebody who is like me, ready with excuses for every single habit, the first thing I think which we should do now, which I have started doing now, is to to give an excuse to that excuse, that today just keep it to yourself, let me do my work. Probably that might work, and to tell our brain that I know you are smart enough and intelligent enough, but let a fool work today and do what it has been doing as a process since last 21 days or 30 days. So probably that might help a little bit.
Thank you, Pragya, for that. Anyone else would like to share anything, your takeaways or your feedback for the session?
Yes, it
Anyone?
was very
I'm
good.
still asking you. I'm still asking you. Are you listening, or is your pattern operating that I cannot speak?
Pattern.
Go ahead, give it a shot and try to break the pattern. Yes, Chetan.
Yes, it was indeed very good session. So the takeaway from this session for me is, by the next Saturday night, I'll try to develop few good habits and try to dump few bad habits. Yes.
Interesting. Shanu, Rush. Yes, who's coming?
Yeah. So definitely, yeah, I agree to him. This session is really good, thought-provoking, and very much helpful also, given us some quick action points. And one of the major thing that I want to take away and implement right away is to jot down what all existing habits I do have.
Habit audit.
And yeah, that is very important. Very good point that you brought out. Unless until we know ourselves and what habits are occupying our mind and our time, we hardly can make any progress or any change to it. That is first thing. Second thing, I have to recalibrate my habits in order to see that how many of the habits are leading towards my goal and how many habits are just trivial habits. Yeah, disabling the trivial habits or negative habits. Based on that, again, the second plan should have another maybe a time within a fixed timeline. Slowly, one by one, I have to pick to unlearn the negative habits and learn a new, introduce new habits.
Interesting.
That's my goal.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you for sharing that. I think that'll be a good takeaway for all the people who are here. Shanu Khan, yes.
Yes, yeah, this is a very good session, and I learned how to make good habits. And from the lockdown, I'm making disciplined myself, and I'm creating making habits of my. And this your sessions give me good feedback that I will continue this pattern in my life.
Thank you, Shanu. Anyone else would like to add before I close?
I would like to learn that every day I'll sleep early and put it on a paper. If I sleep early, I'll put a tick. If I sleep late, I'll put a cross, and overcome that habit and make it as a good habit and do things on time.
Interesting. Also, one more technique I'll say, that's another way of doing it. Just sharing with you. I have a calendar. So I have a red pen and a blue pen, green pen. When on the day on which I'm able to do the action points which are required for a good habit, I color that entire box in green. And the day I'm not able to, I color that in red. The idea is the visual that you'll be seeing over time is what will act as your motivating factor. Maybe try it out, see if it works for you.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, I'll try that.
Sure. Yes,
And
Vikas.
and maybe if some part of the habits are done, then maybe yellow.
Yeah, you can have that. So you've made some progress and you are on the right direction at least. So like the traffic signal, you should be seeing as you progress over the weeks or months, the life should go towards the green. That's the idea. Okay.
Right. Actually, I want to share one more thing, quick thing, if time
Sure,
permits.
go ahead, Vikas.
I have a habit of keeping a time tracker. So, so how I do it is like as and when. So every hour, whatever I have done, I note it down, and for next 1 hour, what is the plan? Like I plan it out in the calendar, Google Calendar, and if I could finish, if I could follow the plan, then I make a different color. Otherwise, a different other a different color I make. And if I plan something and if I end up doing something like WhatsApp or something, then I put that in red color. So idea is to have as less as possible the red colors and the yellow colors. So that's how I track.
Wonderful. I think that's about the idea that we talked about tracker. You should have some way in which something acts as a mechanism to tell you whether you're going good or you're just there or you're going bad. That will be a good way for you to visualize what's the progress, and that will act as a motivator. Wonderful. Thank you, Vikas. Rashmi Sahai, you would like to add something?
No, sir. I'm just listening you all, and I would really like to take some things from this session because I joined late, so I've missed quite a lot of things.
Yep. Like I was told, we share our recordings maybe in a day or two's time in the WhatsApp group. So if you have not joined the WhatsApp group, please join. I've shared the link in the chat over here, in the Zoom chat. That's a WhatsApp group on which we share our updates. So anyone else would like to add something, or we are good to close? I know we are a little late today. Yes, Rabia, go ahead quickly.
Yeah, Saturdays have become a habit, and habit has turned into a lifestyle. Thank you.
It's been, we are still waiting for 90 Saturdays maybe for that. But still, yeah, 90 days has gone and it's been a wonderful journey.
Yes, we wish to progress the same way and let it go on and on, as I can say. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm just coming towards the end for this session and just quickly sharing our final thoughts on this idea of habits. Like already someone mentioned, Subhadram mentioned, our mind operates with the autopilot mode for most of the times. And between the stimulus or something which is coming from the world and our response, which is 95% on autopilot, there's this gap of 5%. This 5% is what our choice is. Don't live a life such that you are a victim of your own habits. Because when you're a victim, you're saying that 5% is not under my control. But you are indeed in control of that 5%. And like you can see the door of the house, you can let it be open for the good things to come in. You can open it for the bad things to put out. But be sure, you are the one who's holding the keys of that door. With that, like I always say, Saturday nights have never been this beautiful for the last 54 Saturday nights now. Thank you that you keep coming back every Saturday night. It's been an honor to be sharing this space with you, listening to your perspectives, sharing our perspectives, and building a world of perspectives. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Listen every